Nothing makes sense. Right, so thank you so much for joining us today. We decided to do a bit of a last minute workshop on top of our normal monthly ones because I was having lots of conversations with charities who basically looked at their calendar and went, "Oh my God, it's November and we haven't even thought about Christmas yet." So, having been a fundraiser myself, I have also pulled together many let's say, slightly rushed campaign. So I kind of wanted to talk you through the process I went through, and I'm also joined by the wonderful Sarah, who I'll let introduce herself shortly, because her experience as well in terms of fundraising and copywriting just adds a whole different element to the film side of things that I'm obviously more experienced about. So hopefully you're in the right place, but just in case, this workshop's for you if you know you need to create a Christmas fundraising video, but you don't know where to start. Or you might need some creative inspiration for content ideas, because sometimes when you're in it, it can be quite hard to see anything else beyond what you're doing. Or if you want to know how to find engaging stories within your organisation and turn them into something a little bit festive. So just an introduction.
The passion.
Sorry, who we are. I'm going to show you a little video that kind of introduces who we are as well.
The passion of the people got this place built.
That has had an incomparable impact on my life, and it's made me who I am today.
I can't put into words what they've done for me.
Even the littlest thing gives you that independence back, and that's what people want.
I want to help the next generation, so leaving a gift in my will can do that.
I'm going to be changing the way that people are seen in society.
How are you?
Good. Yeah. Speaking to someone's hard, but once you start, you'll get everything off your chest and you'll feel free again.
This was the one thing that really helped me cope with life and start seeing a brighter future.
What ended up being an amazing gift for us all is it gave us this determination to get out and make lots of memories together.
Yeah, it changed my life, really.
Right, so for those of you who don't know, my name's Emma. Sorry, I should have said that at the very beginning. And I'm the founder of Saltways. So we make ethical and effective videos for the third sector. My background's working in the charity sector, and that image on the bottom right is the first ever video that I made on my phone, which sparked my love for video content. And yeah, here we are now. So we work with lots of different charities, and our biggest mission is really the belief that all non-profits should be able to create ethical and authentic video content, which is why we do these workshops, because we want to make whatever we do accessible to charities of all sizes. So yeah, it'd be really helpful if you want to pop your name, your charity in the chat, and then answer the question, if you can, of how many of you have brilliant, compelling stories about your work, but every time you think about making a festive fundraising campaign, where you get stuck on questions like, what if I mess this up? Where do I start? Like, what is the barrier for you at the moment that's stopping you from being able to create content? Emma, have you got a hand raised at the moment?
Yeah, I have. We can only direct message you, Emma. There's no open chat for us to see what's going
right,
on.
Okay.
I did put your message in the chat, but we can only direct message you.
Sorry, one sec.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me know. I'm just gonna pass over to Sarah, but before I do that, I am going to let everybody talk to each other.
Let me get my screen shared and then I can do a little introduction while you're doing that bit if you want, Emma.
Yeah, hopefully that should work now. So yeah, feel free to just pop your charity name, what barriers you're facing, and yeah, just introduce yourselves.
The chat box is working. I'm just putting a test message in there now. Hello. Hopefully that will work for everyone. Yay. Excellent. I will say a quick hello about who I am while everyone is thinking about your challenges and things that are stopping you to making those films. We're on 50 people in the room now. Amazing. Love to see it. Thank you everyone for being here. So I'm Sarah Goddard, and you might know me across the internet as Fundraiser Sarah. I've been in fundraising for just over 19 years, and I am very much focused on the storytelling part of fundraising. So I work across community, events, individual giving, bringing that all together as public fundraising. And the things that tie all of that together are the power of words, emotions, stories, and it's all of this that will help build those relationships for your supporters and inspire them to take action. And for your festive film, that might be donating, it might be fundraising, it might be taking part in a raffle, it could be absolutely anything. And we're going to talk a bit more about that in a little bit. Cool. How are we getting on in the chat box, Emma? What are people telling us?
Everyone, it's the usual thing, I think, of people just maybe not having enough time, a little bit around uncertainty about, creative inspiration. So we guessed right, which is good to know.
Always good. Yeah, definitely things around messaging, people being on film, definitely. I think a lot of content we're covering today will cover a lot of these challenges. We might not cover every last little tiny detail of everything, but you'll have Emma and I's contact details, and you can always get in touch and get the wonderful salt ways to help with your filmmaking, get me to help with the storytelling side, whatever it might be. There is lots of resources and support out there for you, and hopefully today's session will be a big part of that. Emma, shall I dive in? No, you've got a first. No, I'm first, aren't I? Shall I dive into dive into the beginning of the content? I'm first. Excellent, cool. Let me not get distracted by the chat box and seeing what everyone is saying. Let me just focus in on what we're talking about. Cool. Okie dokie. So, first and foremost, stories. This common theme that is popping up in the chat box. So stories have existed in human culture since we could talk, and even longer through the mediums of sign language and through art. And when we think about things like cave paintings, which are some 36,000 years old, they're one of the earliest forms of storytelling. But why are they there? Stories help us to explain the inexplicable and make sense of our world. They help us to make order out of chaos, to pass on valuable lessons and information, and explore and share the depths of the emotions that we feel as complex creatures. A story can teach you a valuable lesson, for example, teaching children not to talk to strangers. It can establish familiarity to recount information. Much of our history is recounted through our stories, and our memories recall detail better when it's told through stories. It can bond a group. Think about the stories you share when you get together for lunch with your friends or in the pub after work. It brings a sense of connection when we're sharing those stories. And stories can also influence or disrupt. We rally behind people who tell stories to inspire. Think about Martin Luther King or Greta Thunberg. There are some amazing storytellers out in the public eye, and we rally behind them. Because storytelling is an experience, whether you're the one doing the telling or the one listening. Experience gives us connection, experiences and stories entertain us, and they help us to feel emotions and then create deep-rooted memories. And this is all the reasons why your stories at your charity are so important. Stories also help us to make decisions. And our brains are split into two parts. We've got the logical side and the emotional side. And 90% of the decisions that we make are emotional decisions. That means they're made almost subconsciously without us even realizing it. And the reason why we know that they're almost subconscious is because they're made faster. Our emotional decisions are 2,000 times faster than logic. And this is why when we're hearing a story, which we are then able to recount that information 6 to 7 times better, we are engaging emotionally. It's creating empathy. It's creating understanding. It's tapping into that emotional side of our brain. So when we hear a story and are then asked to make a decision, fundraise for us this Christmas, please make a kind donation, volunteer your time, sign our petition, we're much more likely to make that decision quickly and based on the emotions that the story has helped us connect to. We'll probably then go and find the logic to back it up, such as, oh yes, that charity's impact is absolutely amazing, but it is the emotion and the story that's going to lead to making those decisions. So I want us to think a bit about some of the inspirational and memorable stories. What is it that inspires us to action, and what is it that makes them memorable? The first thing is having a problem and solution. I'm going to come on to that in just a second. The next is about clearly identifying your emotions. And this is particularly important when you're looking at creating a festive film, when you're looking at creating a brief, when you're looking at the story you're telling. What are the emotions that you're focusing in on? Not just the facts of this happened, then that happened, then this happened, then that happened. And then it's the stuff that makes your story unique, the sticky details. And again, I'm going to give you a few examples of those in just a moment as well. So let's look first of all at this problem and solution. So when we're thinking about the wide spectrum of human emotions, it can be very easy to go into the old school level of fundraising of, look at this poor person, isn't it awful? Isn't the situation horrible? We must come in on our white steed and save the day. No, it's 2025. We are not doing that. It's not ethical. It's dehumanizing. It's icky. It's gross. It's horrible. We're not doing it. I think we're all in agreement about that. However, we do still need to be able to show where the problem is and what the solution is. And this, where the nuance here is, the difference here, is that the problem itself may be sad. For the person hearing the story, the problem itself may bring up feelings of anger, may bring up feelings of disappointment, may bring up feelings of injustice. But it's the problem, the situation, not that person. So we go bigger than just the problem and solution. And first of all, we set the scene. We focus in on the person whose story we're telling, and we share more about them than just that situation. We share their life, their interests, their hobbies, what they enjoy doing, what they do for work, what music they listen to, whatever it might be. We show them as a whole genuine person, not as the center point of a problem to be saved, because ick. We then talk about what the problem is. So the problem is that food poverty is affecting many people in this country, and so people just can't afford their groceries anymore. It's not, oh, poor Mary who can't afford to feed her children, poor woe is. No. And we say, this is a problem, and Mary is one of those people. And then we can talk a bit about why that is a problem. Then we talk about the solution. And again, we are very careful in talking about solution that the person at the center of that story is not a passive bystander. They will have had some level of agency in that. They would have made some decisions. They would have taken action. So we don't talk about that person as a passive bystander having stuff done to them by the charity. They are part of that solution. But then we also talk about the ongoing problem because it isn't solved yet. This is still a problem for other people, for community, for your community. And then it's translating the solution into something that your supporter can be part of. So where once upon a time it was, poor hungry child, send £5 to feed this child, you're a hero. Not doing that, absolutely not. It's now, this is why food poverty is an issue. It's affecting people like this family. This is how it's affecting them. The solution is our food parcels that someone can put themselves forward for to receive. Mary and her family got one of those food parcels, but we've still got many more families like hers that need one. Could you give £10 a day to provide a food parcel for someone in your community? It's a nuance, it's a difference, but it is really, really, really important. And it's really important as well because our brains love to try and solve problems. The reason why this works is because when we hear that there's an issue, when we hear there's a problem, when we're given a puzzle, when we're given a question, our brains immediately go into the mode of, I want to answer that, I want to fix it, I need the answer. And the solution, even if we didn't come up with it, circles off that whole process, and our brains go, oh, good, I've got the answer, excellent. And that's why then when you give them the ongoing problem, our brains again want to be part of that solution to solve it. So there's a real psychological process to this that is also about tapping into the emotions that a story brings up. And then this brings us on to our second point about what keeps a story being inspirational and memorable. And that is our emotions. Now, I apologise, the text in this wheel is going to be a little bit small. This is a completely free resource. It's on the internet under feelingswheel.com. And it's really important to remember, as I said, that our brains make decisions emotionally. And the reason why it does that is because we needed it for survival. If we see a tiger in front of us and we're going, logically, big teeth, big claws, runs quite fast, possibly wants to eat me. Should I run? Should I climb a tree? Should I try and fight it? By the time we've logically gone through all of that, the tiger's already attacked us. So our brains need to go sharp, danger, run, and just instant into action. So when we think about stories, when we think about our charities, what we need to think about is understanding empathy. Because when we experience empathy, which is relating to the feelings of someone else, we are then able to tap into the emotional parts of our brain and make a decision. And as humans, we have such a wide range of emotions to draw on. So being able to identify the feelings that a story brings up, or articulating what we want someone hearing a story to think, feel, or do, will help us choose which story to use or which parts of a story to draw into the details about. So really think about when you're writing your brief, when you're listening to a story, think about the emotions that it brings up, but also how this ties back into ethical storytelling as well. And the next thing is about helping a story to stick in our minds. What makes a story sticky? And for me, there's three key things to help make your story stick. First of all is engaging the senses. Again, our senses and our memories are so closely interlinked, and there's also often a lot of emotional connection with food as well. So, connected with smells. And food is a great example of thinking about how to engage senses. There's a story that I tell about an older lady who wasn't eating very much, but then really wanted fish and chips. When I talk about fish and chips and the smell of vinegar and lemon on the fish, we can all relate to that. And for most people, their mouths start watering and think, I'm having a chippy tea tonight. It makes it relatable. It gets those feelings of empathy. It's understandable because we all know what it's like when we get our favourite food. So how can you weave things like taste or smell or sound into your story? I once did an appeal for a teacher's charity, a written appeal, where we spoke for a long time about how to write out onomatopoeically the sound of a ringing school bell, so that when someone read that letter, they could hear in their mind the sound of a school bell. Think about those little details that will help a story stick. The next part is about making it relatable. What is the thing in your story that someone will understand and be able to relate to? And that could be something like a favourite meal. It could be something like going to school. It could be something like the relationships that we have. We all have someone in our life that we love and care about. So think about, instead of your stories being this happened, that happened, this happened, that happened, how can you make something relatable to your readers, your viewers' everyday experiences? And finally, look out for those tiny but unexpected details that will help a story to stick in someone's mind. Your charity is doing amazing work, and there will be something in your charity's work that is what we might call a USP, a unique sticking point, or actually what I like to call it is your spark of magic. What is it in your stories that was either about that individual or within the work that you did that is just that little bit different, that little bit unique that will help a story stick in someone's mind? It doesn't have to be the huge impactful thing. It could be something like your person is talking about how in the therapy room there were pink heart post-it notes to help think about the things that they really appreciated. And those pink heart post-it notes really meant something to them, and they still have them kept in their diary at home. You might not remember anything else about the story, but you'll remember the pink heart post-it notes. So what are those little details? They don't have to literally be sticky like a post-it note, but that was just a nice example to go with. So now that you're thinking a bit about why stories are so important and how to structure and tell them, I want you to think about where we're going to find those stories. I know that was a challenge for a few people in the chat box. So first things first is go and see your work wherever you can, or talk to those who do. I worked for an international development charity, and for various reasons, I never got over to see our work in Eastern Africa. And that's fine though, because I felt like I knew our work because I got to know my colleagues so well. I used our online channels. It would be Slack nowadays. In those days, it was something else. And I got to build relationships with them. I would get on video calls. I would ask them to share photos and quotes and insights and absolutely anything. So I was constantly just hearing little tidbits about our stories. Whenever one of my colleagues went over to visit our overseas offices and overseas projects, as soon as they came back, I'd be like, let me make you a coffee. Tell me everything. Not in a structured way, not as a case study, but just over a coffee, letting them talk very naturally in this very human way that we've been doing for tens of thousands of years, just sharing stories verbally. This is where you are going to find your most impactful stories, by talking to your colleagues. So just try and weave that into your daily routine of who can you talk to, who can you go and see, who can you find out more about your work in an informal way rather than sitting down and trying to capture a case study. Along those notes is think about who else talks to people. If you have charity shops, if you have volunteers, if you have beneficiaries that pop in or out, who are the people that talk to people? Do you know who's brilliant at this? Receptionists. If you're a charity that has a reception, they talk to people. Go and talk to the people who talk to people. And again, share stories in that very natural human way that we've been doing for so long. Verbally, share them, listen, and then find out, whose story it is and if you need to find out a bit more information about it. And finally, read all of your own organisation's communications. Now, if you are responsible for fundraising and comms, and I know for many small charities that is one person wearing the one hat, you probably not only have already read them all, but you probably write them all as well. And I hats off to you. I completely understand the workload that entails. But if you have got a couple of other colleagues, maybe someone who does this type of newsletter while you do the fundraising one, maybe it's a different team that puts together your annual report, whatever it might be, go and find all of those communications and read them and hunt for the stories. Then go and find the person who wrote it and ask them in a bit more detail about those stories. Story finding, story listening, story collecting is an ongoing live process, and you need to keep your ears open at all times and talk to as many people as you can. It is not going to be natural for many of your colleagues to proactively come to you with stories. It is down to you to go and build the relationships, have the conversations, and listen out for them, and then ask the right questions to get more detail about those stories as well. There's also a really beautiful example I like to share about what I call alternative storytellers. And this is an example from the website Sophie. And if you don't know Sophie, go and bookmark it now because it is full of inspiration and so much exciting stuff for you to use. And this is the story of a little boy who was deafblind and supported by the charity Sense. And this appeal was told from Teddy. Teddy is this little boy's stuffed monkey, and the stuffed monkey went absolutely everywhere with him. So therefore, the story told through Teddy's eyes showed all of these lovely levels of detail that you would never have had the letter come from the little boy. He can't consent to that. He's very young. He's very little. The letter could have come from mum, and that would have been a beautifully powerful appeal and letter as well. But it coming from Teddy made it's those sticky details. It's that little spark of magic. It's something that's going to stick with your readers, and it is just going to give a different level of emotion for the people reading that story. So think about your charity. Who are your alternative storytellers? Is it the bench in the garden that people go and sit on after they've received some news? Is it the kitchen where people make a coffee? Is it the coffee cup that people hold? Does someone in your story have a teddy or a handbag or something? Where could your alternative storytellers be? Be creative with it. Yeah? And then before you come into writing copy, so I know this whole webinar is about your festive fundraising film, but there are going to be some words that go with that, whether it's a website, whether it's social media posts, whether it's an email, whether maybe you send out a letter as well and direct people online to watch the video. Multi-channel, it's good. But I want you to think about before you put pen to paper or sit down with that Word document, answer some key questions. Who are you writing to? What channel are they reading it on? Why am I writing this copy? What is the purpose of it? And to help answer why, what do you want the reader to think, feel, and do? And building on that, then, what is your key message and what is your call to action? Because all too often we sit down to write copy and we just start writing rather than doing a little bit of that thinking and planning it out. Huh? And I now want to give you some top tips for writing that copy. Because writing is an art form, and this is something I really want people to remember. It's art. It is not something on your to-do list to be ticked off. And whether you're writing an appeal letter, a marketing email, a stewardship note to a supporter, a speech to be given at your gala, whatever it is that you're writing and crafting and bringing these words together, writing is first and foremost a tool to convey information, but it's so much more than that. It is an art form, and art is designed to convey emotion, to connect us to something, to help us feel something, to connect us with the experience of being alive and being human. And that's what fundraising is, right? To connect people to something, to help each other live in a world that's a little bit better, that's a little bit kinder. There is emotion in our fundraising, emotion in our storytelling, and that emotion should come through in our copy as well. So whatever it might be, your writing is going to help your readers feel something, and those feelings, as we know through our emotional decisions, will turn into actions. So make sure that you are giving your copy the space and creative energy that it deserves. And to help you write better and stronger copy, some top tips. The first is write how you speak. Be human. And this is a little bit controversial, but I want you to take all of those grammar rules that you were taught at school and throw them away. Because quite frankly, no one speaks in those grammar rules that we were taught at school. It is absolutely fine to make sure your writing sounds like speaking authentically to a friend. It is okay to start a sentence with and. I promise you it is okay. So when you're writing, read it out loud. Imagine you're saying it to a friend and see if it feels conversational enough. And the thing to remember is that it's a lot easier to tighten up loose copy. So if maybe you've gone a little bit too conversational, a little bit too informal, It's a lot easier to tighten that up and make it a little bit more formal than to take very formal, academic, difficult to read copy and loosen it up to make it feel more human. So if in doubt, go one end of the scale and tighten it up rather than trying to loosen up tight copy. My second tip is to be decisively descriptive. And what this means in plain English is show, don't tell. The old saying, a picture paints 1,000 words. That is true. So with your words, don't try to overdo it. Think about the easiest way to show, not tell something. So these are all verbs that tell us something, but how could you show these things instead? Monica felt angry and thought she should leave. Chandler heard she was upset. But instead, show that. Monica threw the gift across the room. Fine, if that's the way you feel, and turned on her heel, slamming the door behind her. We're seeing that she's angry. Likewise, Harry decided to visit the more appealing of the two countries. That's fine, that tells us what happened. Harry grabbed a pen, scribbling 2 columns. New Zealand or Germany? Which of these countries was more appealing? His list would help him decide. There's just a little bit more emotion, there's a little bit more description, there's a little bit more connection. So when you're telling your charity stories, it's so easy to fall into the trap of this happened, that happened, then that happened, then this happened, and now this person is good. Bring the emotion in, and showing rather than telling is a really important way of doing that. Equally on that note, don't try and be too fancy. Can anyone tell that I'm a big Friends fan? And someone might remember this episode of Friends where Joey used a thesaurus on every single word he could because he was worried about not coming across articulately enough or fancy enough or smart enough to recommend his friends. And that meant the letter made absolutely no sense at all because he even changed his own name to Baby Kangaroo Tribbiani. And often we worry that we have to write very articulately or in a very academic way to appeal to our very smart and clever donors. And especially if we feel that the audiences we are talking to or that they view themselves are indeed very intelligent, academic, whatever it might be. Did you know the average reading age in the UK is just 9 years old? Now, a 9-year-old's reading level is not Biff and Chip went to school. So have a look on Amazon, have a look in your local bookshop. If you have someone around the age of 9 in your life, pick up the books that they're reading from school and then see how much you can align your style of writing to that level, because that is how you're going to make your writing accessible to your readers. And then the most important bit is to write copy that inspires action. So to do that, you want to create a link with your reader. Use you instead of we. Connect to words that they want to hear themselves described as, things like kind or generous. Through your generous gift this Christmas, we can help more families like Mary's. Think about how to create that link, create that empathy, create that emotional connection. Make sure your call to action is clear, is strong, and is repeated. It is not enough to just have at the end of a 2-page letter, could you maybe make a gift? Okay, thanks, bye. Make sure it is in there as, will you please donate today? Will you give a gift this week? Will you give a gift this Christmas? Will you sign up today? Sign our petition before it's too late. Organise your festive fundraiser now. And in something like an email, make sure that is repeated top, middle and bottom, particularly in the PS, because that is going to be the thing that people often jump to. So in a letter or an email, your PS is one of the biggest pieces of real estate. So make sure your call to action with that link to your reader with the yous in there are in there really, really strong. And likewise, repetition. Make sure you have a clear, strong, repeated call to action because your readers are going to skim read and they will miss your call to action if it's not in there repeatedly. So likewise, there might be a bit of your story that needs repeating, that needs going over because it's emotive and it's important. Don't worry too much about having something that you've already said if it's key, if it ties into your key message, if it ties into what you're getting your readers to think, feel and do. Okay? I know I rattled through a lot of information. There's so much I wanted to share with you. If you want to stay in touch, I have got all my details. I will share them at the end as well. Take a quick screenshot if you need to, but I'll pop this up at the end too, so that if there's anything from there you want to discuss in more detail, you can come find me and we can do that. So, oh no, spoilers. I'm going to stop sharing now and hand back to Emma.
Thanks, Sarah. I think that's so helpful because, yeah, I mean, the video is obviously is important. That's what I'm going to talk about now, but there also needs to be plan around what goes around that video and what language you use and how you're going to frame it and the email you're going to send and the social media post you're going to do to go along with it. And I think again that can be a mistake that can be made by some charities, is that it's not just a film. There's so much that goes around it as well to make it as successful as possible. So now I'm going to go through, and I'm sure this is probably a question that you've asked when you saw the title of this, is can you really make an impactful festive fundraising film in just 14 days? And the answer is yes. And me and Sarah actually worked on a Christmas fundraising film in 14 days. So we are evidence that you can. And there's some things that you do actually need to do to obviously help with that. Firstly, is you really need to start with really clear objectives. It can't just be, we're going to make a fundraising film, fingers crossed it works. You need to put together briefs. You need to think about what you want to achieve. I'm going to go into that, but you need to have really clear objectives. Work smart, not slow. So plan it all out. And again, I'm going to go into how you could plan that out in terms of what you should be doing and when. And focus on authenticity over perfection. This is something that the Salt Ways we talk about a lot. I think that charities should be being more authentic and honest and raw to firstly help build trust in the sector, because I think over polished, heavily produced stuff actually causes confusion and a lack of understanding. But also people want to connect with the people that you support and the impact that you have. And I think being authentic is just such a more effective way of doing that than anything that's polished. So whatever we taught you through now, you could just do this on your phone very easily, and people will forgive if it doesn't look very polished, because they'll connect more with something that's authentic than they might do with something that's really heavily produced. So the first thing to do, especially if you have limited time, is put together a brief. And I'm going to go through some stages that we go through when we create videos and what goes into that brief, the most important stuff. This will help you save time. It also really helps when it comes to the edit. And I know someone had put in the comments that one of the issues they have is that they're not quite sure what to keep in the edit, what not to keep in the edit. And if you spend a bit of time on your brief, it really helps you when you're making those decisions of, should I include this? Shouldn't I include this? What's the most important bits? And it helps you put your questions together, you ask people. It helps you put together your shot list. So everything should start with the brief. The first thing that you want to ask is, what's the one thing that you want this Christmas film to achieve? Is it that you want it to be donations? Hopefully, yes. But if that's the number one objective, then that needs to be reflected in the content, the call to action, all the messaging around it. Is it just donations? Is it that you want people to sign up to a Christmas appeal? Do you want them to do a fundraising event for you? Do you want them to do donate your Christmas card budget this year? Or is it something that's a little bit more, you're asking them to fund part of a service? So is it, is it an emergency winter appeal that you want to fund a certain part of, for example, a soup drive or something like, is it for a project? Because again, by answering those questions, you will be able to, the content that you create must match what it is that you're asking for. Because there's no point you doing an appeal that's very much focused on a certain project that you're running, but at the end you just say, please donate. Like, you need to make it feel urgent. You need to make it about the impact that service has, and that's the call to action, and that should be the content. So yeah, the first thing you need to think is, what are we trying to achieve to this? Don't do all of it, because people won't remember it and it's just going to create you time and hassle. Focus on one thing, especially when you've only got 2 weeks. Then think about who is it that we're talking to? So is this existing donors or is it new people? Is it corporate partners? Is it the first time that people might have heard of you and given to you for the first time? Christmas is a great opportunity because people generally give more to charity anyway, so they're primed for it, and your existing donors will be expecting that ask from you. So the way that you speak to people and the content that you include will be dictated by who it is you're talking to. So if it's existing donors, you might not need to really go into that much detail about what it is that you do. They kind of know that, but you could tell an impact story, or you could talk about something in a way that they already have a basic understanding. If it's corporate partners, you want to think about, with corporate content, what benefit are they getting from this? So I would be creating a video that they could share with their staff or with their network. So that language and the tone of that will be different to the one that you're doing with existing donors. Or is it people who've never heard of you before? And in that way, you need to think about, well, where am I going to find these people? So if, for example, it's an older donor that might be in a woman in their 60s, you're probably going to want to create longer form video that you can put on Facebook. If it's actually we want to try and reach a younger demographic, you probably want to create stuff that's filmed in portrait that you can put on TikTok and Instagram Reels. So again, trying to save yourself time and making sure you're making use of your time that you have. Think about who exactly that you're talking to, and that again will dictate what content and where you're going to put it and the language that you use and all of that. Before you start making it, and this will go into your brief. Then Sarah already touched on this a little bit, but what is it that what's the festive emotion that you're trying to capture? And again, that will frame who you film, how you film it. So is it hope and warmth? So for that, you might want to tell a story where there's some real inspiration and hope there. Is an urgent winter need where you want people, you might have a service delivery staff sat there looking exhausted saying, we need your help, like we cannot do this without you. Like is it something that feels urgent, or is it something that's a bit more festive and light-hearted, and you kind of just want to capture that feeling of giving and joy, and you want people to kind of associate that with your organization? So that might be something a bit more light-hearted. So again, what is the emotion you're trying to capture here? Then the next step is to think about, well, who is it that we can feature? And I know a lot of charities say, well, we don't have anyone who can tell their story because, we work with people who can't be identified, or it's really difficult because of the nature of the work we do. Yes, it's great if you can get someone who's a client or that's benefited from your services, but that's not the only people you can feature. We've made really compelling videos with volunteers, with staff, with supporters. If you're doing something that someone maybe is fundraising for you at Christmas, their story can be really compelling as well. Like, why have they chosen to do that? That's social proof. That's, a corporate supporter, especially if you're trying to make a corporate video and you've got another corporate saying, we're going to be fundraising for this charity this Christmas and this is why. That's a great bit of content. So try and think outside the box of who it is that you can feature. It doesn't have to always be the people that you work with in terms of your beneficiaries. It can think bigger, especially when you have limited time again. So yeah, that's kind of the top level stuff that I'd be putting in a brief before creating any content. From that, you'll then be able to do your shot list, your questions you're going to ask, the places you want to film. Then you can start putting together your copy, and you should always be coming back to this brief to help shape and guide all of that. And this is how I would figure it out in terms of a timeline. And we will be sharing this after, so don't worry you don't have to scribble these down manically. So the first thing I'd be doing if we were starting next week is thinking about, firstly, the brief. So all those things we went through, you could do this in 2 days. No, it won't take 2 full days. Like, this is a couple of hours. Firstly, think about, like, what is it you're going to be putting in that brief? Again, we can share with you a template for a brief. If it's helpful, I'll send it in an email after. That has those things in it. So the key message we want to communicate, how we want people to feel, who it is that we're talking to, what's the message we want to get across, what's the shot list, what's the questions we're going to ask, and then think about the contributors. So who is it you're going to be filming? So who is available? Because again, you've got limited time, which is why staff is always great, or volunteers, because they're usually easier to coordinate with. And who is comfortable filming at the moment. So again, that goes on to the ethical side of things. So is it someone that, if you are going to be filming beneficiaries or clients, is this a good time for them to be doing this in a way that if this does feel a bit rushed, can they give their informed consent? Or are they going to feel a little bit under pressure because you're saying we need to make a film in 2 weeks? So if you've already got a good relationship with someone and you've kind of already had those conversations about content creation, great. But if this is something that you're trying to do a bit last minute, I would recommend probably filming with people that maybe definitely that you know are in a position to be able to give their fully informed consent, and that you can support them through that. Then you want to think about locations. So consider, popping down to, thank God now the Christmas decorations are already there, and they have been since April. But, think about what you'd need to make it look festive. If you're going for that sort of festive, hopeful thing, I think definitely you need some sort of trimming put around there. So think about, Christmas decorations, timing. You need to think about the time of the year. So if you're going to be filming, make sure you're doing it in the morning, afternoon, because you'll lose light in the evening unless you want to do an evening vibe. And then write down your interview questions. And how we do that is is think about your key message and ask questions that are going to bring that to life. So if your key message is, this is an urgent appeal, a Christmas appeal, we need to raise £10,000 to be able to continue this service this Christmas, then the questions you should ask is, why is that service important? Why do we need to do it now? What impact does it have? What will happen if it doesn't exist? What can people do to help? What would you say to someone who donated? So you need to think about what are the questions that I can ask people to bring that messaging to life. And then the next thing is the shot list, which is basically the things you're going to be filming. And the things that you're going to be filming should bring all that messaging and everything to life. So a great tip for this, when you have got limited time as well, is that you can use AI for this. You could put your brief into AI and say, can you put me together some interview questions and a shot list? Obviously, you need to then humanize that and check it and make sure that it all makes sense. But if you're stuck, that's a really good way that you can get your creative juices flowing. So the next bit, once you've done all your planning, is logistics. So you want to confirm all your participants. You want to make sure that you've got your consent forms all signed, that that's all sorted, that you do a risk assessment if needed, if you're filming somewhere where that's necessary. Get all your things together, like any archive footage. So B-roll basically means the footage that isn't interviews. So things like filming someone putting a bauble on a Christmas tree, or filming someone walking down the street. Anything that you can film that brings the stories to life and is more visual. So it might be that you have archive footage. So for example, if you're talking about someone telling their story and they're saying, I can't, if I think about my life this time last year, it's completely different and it's only because of this charity that it is, then ask them if they've got any pictures of that time last year that you can use to bring the story to life. Think about, preparations for if you are doing a special Christmas service, what can you film around that? Think about winter scenes. So, someone walking through and there's being, rustling leaves on the floor, and make sure you prep all your equipment. If it is just a phone, that's fine. That's all you need. But it might be that you've got a tripod. It might be that you've got microphones. It might be that you've got a ring light. So yeah, just think about all of those things, and just make sure, like I said, that you're aware that the sun goes down earlier. So you will have limited time for shooting, and obviously you need to, if it is raining, snowing, you need to have a backup plan, especially if you've only got a couple of days that you can actually film in. So that's week 1 done. You've got everything planned. Then we get to the fun bit, the actual filming. So next up is actually filming. So I'd go for this week 2, the beginning of week 2. I've put in about this light again. Can you tell this is a big thing for me, just from being burnt in the past from this. So make sure you get all your interviews, your B-roll. I'd probably give yourself a couple of days to do this, especially if you've got lots of other things going on. One tip I would say is when you are filming, try and think about other things you could be filming at the same time. So I think a lot of charities might go into, when they have a filming day, that's a big amount of time for you as a charity to take out for your calendar. Don't just think about the stuff you're filming for this campaign. Think about stuff that you've got coming up next year that you could also film for at the same time. Definitely get a thank you message that you can send to people after they've donated. But maybe you're thinking, oh, well, we're going to do a volunteer recruitment campaign in February. And actually there's some volunteers there on the day that we're filming. Take 5 minutes and just ask them what they love volunteering about you. And then you've got that in the bank and you don't have to think about it. And when it comes to that campaign, you can do that again. Equally, you might be thinking, well, next year we want to recruit for more staff. So you could ask a staff member, talk me through what a day looks like for you and why you love working here. So just when you are filming, think about what other things could we be getting at the same time. Capture lots of festive B-roll if that's the messaging you're going for, or any appropriate B-roll, and then always make sure that you check your audio and that you record backup audio, because when you've got limited time, if you get out of that shoot and the sound is bad, it's going to be really hard for you to go back and get that again. So I would, especially the stuff like your call to action, get someone to read it out as well, so you've got it really clear, and you can have it as a backup if needed. So you've done your filming, and then what you want to think about is the post-production. this obviously is labor intensive. Editing is hard, but I would just say try not to get too stressed about it. I know that I'm not a professional editor, but I've taught myself how to do it. I can get by. And actually, it doesn't need to be perfect. Like I said, authenticity, honesty, realness is so much important than something that's really polished. So start by putting it all into a timeline, like a rough assembly. Go back to your brief, pull out the bits that are relevant to that brief. What you might get distracted by, and I have this all the time with editors who get distracted by a great story, you need to bring in the role that you've played as a charity. So yes, there might be a strong story there in a video, but you need to have that bit in it that is what you've done as a charity, because that's what people are going to donate to, is the role that you've played in that, and that's, you want them to remember your role in it, not just the person's story. So get your rough assembly down, refine it, edit it. I wouldn't use too many cheesy Christmas tracks, but add some music, and then show it to somebody that is not connected to your charity. Ask them to watch it. And then ask them questions around the brief, like, what do you think the key message was here? Who do you think that we're trying to? Who do you think would like watching this? What in there do you feel like isn't important, or what did you really love? And then you can go back and make some little tweaks and adjustments. What you don't want to do is have lots of layers of approval of people watching this, especially again when you've got limited time. So beforehand, establish with your team who needs final sign off on this. We don't need 10 people to watch it. We just need the person who's editing it, maybe someone else, and then final sign off from someone if needed. But as little people as possible giving feedback on that, the better, especially if they haven't been involved in all that pre-production stuff as well. And then finally, you want to do a final review, export it in the final format, and then share it with the people who featured in it before December chaos hits. And then you should be all going well, ready to launch. And then you can work on all your copywriting, all the lovely, exciting stuff that goes alongside it. So if you follow that, and I know it probably won't go as smoothly as that, but that's generally the steps that you kind of need to take to be able to get from idea to actually having a video. And I'm just going to touch on some really top level, just technical tips that if you are recording this on your phone, we do have a PDF that I can send you, and I'll pop it in an email that goes into loads more detail about how to make content using your phone. But the most important things are sound. So like I said, try and have backup audio for the key messaging bits, for the voiceover bits. If there's any bit that's going to be kind of the call to action that you really need to hear clearly. When you are doing it, just record sound, get someone to talk about what they had for breakfast, then listen back and then do the full interview. So just test a little bit. Try and be in natural light wherever possible, because it's just better and looks nicer than when you've got something really heavily or artificially lit. Capture atmosphere. So you don't want it to be, just someone sat behind a desk. You want there to have a feeling, and you want to see the work happening, and it shouldn't just feel static. There should be some feeling of movement there. And then framing. There's a little tip that you can turn on your phone called grid lines, and it's changed my life. That I can, get great pictures of my kids now. But it basically adds these little grid lines onto your phone, and it really helps with your framing. So once you've got them switched on, you know exactly what I mean. But it just helps you to make sure that you're not cutting people's heads off, that they're not, that you can have them in the left or the right, and you can have their eye line along the top. So this is how I remember it. It's just an acronym: SNAF: sound, natural light, atmosphere, framing. And if you just remember those 4 things, it will improve the quality of your video content. So I've rattled through that. So yeah, we've tried to pack as much as we can into this, haven't we, Sarah? And what we want to kind of do is give you a bit of inspiration, because I think, again, like a lot of people said in the comments that in the chat, sorry, that it's having ideas. So what we thought would be helpful is that me and Sarah have looked at a couple of charities that were registered to come to this workshop. We don't know if they're here or not, but hopefully everyone will find this helpful. So we've both had a look at their websites and just come up with a couple of ideas of what they could do as a Christmas campaign. After that, we're going to go into breakout rooms, and so you can do this exercise with each other a little bit, so you can talk about what you do as an organisation, and hopefully have a bit of peer-to-peer support of like creative ideas of what you could have, what you could do as a fundraising appeal. But here's some rough ideas. So you could do like a Christmas message montage. Go around the staff, go around your service delivery team, volunteers, anyone who's there in a couple of days, just say to them, what would you like to say as a Christmas message? It might be thank you for everything you've done. It might be please give. It might be Merry Christmas to everybody. We couldn't do this without you. Put that all together in a montage, add some music. You've got a nice little video there. Another one could be a day in the life of. People love a day in the life of. That is something that, you just follow someone around, like a member of staff, anyone really that's connected to your charity. These always get really good engagement because people like to see behind the scenes. Or like a classic impact story. So you're filming someone telling their story about the work that you've done, how you've helped them, and how their life has changed because of you. So those are just some basic ones. But I had a look at this charity that might be here, but was registered, and they have on their website a message that says "Fill hearts and pantries this Christmas." So I think what I would take that and do with it an idea of the literal sense of fill hearts and pantries this Christmas, but also all those little moments. So I was thinking as a video, what they could do is almost follow the journey of someone leaving a donation, someone in a supermarket putting the food into the trolley, but also the little moments that happen because of that. So the person smiling as they're putting it into the trolley, maybe a connection that happens with someone that's in the shop as well. So that they could say, oh, what are you buying this for? And them telling them about the charity. That's another little filling of the heart. And then taking it to the food bank, giving it them, seeing that it's filling a pantry, but doing the moment, filming the moment and that's happening between the person who's taken the donation and the person that's given the donation. So you've got another filling hearts moment. You've got the physical actual pantry because they've taken the donation. And then just, I don't think you'd need to even film somebody taking it and putting it in their pantry at home, because you don't want this to feel like savourism in any way. And I think it'd be difficult to find somebody who'd be happy to do that. You could just literally have the volunteer putting it on the shelf and smiling. Like that would be enough. Because you know what's going to happen after that. You don't need to be told what's going to happen after that. You know that people are in despair. Like you don't need to state the obvious sometimes. It's nicer to just suggest stuff sometimes. So that's just one idea that I had for that. And that was literally just me looking at the website for 5 minutes. So it doesn't, again, try not to overthink it too much. Sometimes the simplest ideas are the best. And then Sarah, you had a look at the Wish Centre, didn't you?
I did, yes. And this is a really, really beautiful charity, and they work with survivors of domestic abuse in a particular area of the country. And I just had a little look at their website, had a little look at their social media, and I had three different ideas from literally 5 minutes on the website from seeing some of their stories. One of the things that jumped out to me initially was this really powerful call to action about being an ally. And from what I can tell from the charity, and if you're here, feel free to correct me in the chat box if I didn't get this right. Being an ally means many different things. And for their charity in particular, it's broadly about being a supporter, but it's not just about giving financially. It's all of these different ways that you can be an ally to someone. And I thought that would be a really interesting story to tell, honing in on that idea of social proof. So it's a supportive story. So what does it mean to be an ally? An ally's story. And then your call to action is you too can be an ally. And that could be signing up to volunteer. It could be, putting your name to the ally list, like a lead generation type thing, or it could be donating. So the charity could tailor that ask in lots of different ways. But this is an example of a charity where it may well be tricky to find stories because of the sensitive nature of what we're talking about. And there's also a very real example of, someone being able to consent with enough time, as Emma talked about. So thinking about other types of stories that this charity could tell was really important to me. The next one that I saw was on their website. They did have a survivor's story, and it was very impactful, and there was a lot of things in that story that were very, very, very emotive. And I thought it was really amazing of this survivor to share their story in so much detail. And again, it's sometimes important to think about when we are dealing with some of these issues that are very, very, very big, very, very emotive. It's important to think about what bits of a story that we're telling. The film that Emma and I worked on, actually, we did in 2 weeks. We had a big conversation around this, of this person's history and the point at which we were going to start the story so that we weren't re-traumatizing potentially the storyteller or anyone watching it. And the bit of this story that stuck out to me, one of those sticky details, if you like, was they talked about in therapy building their pillars of things in their community, the pillars of things in their life that help them build themselves up and be strong. And I was like, wow, what a beautiful image. And I just thought that if I was telling that survivor story, that would be part that I zoomed in on and talked about a bit more. And the ask there would be something about being at the heart of something and like, will you be the heart that helps the survivor to build their pillars? So again, it's not you're building the pillars for that survivor. You're the heart that is making that survivor able to build their own pillars. They're not a poor person having something done to them. They are the center of their own story. So yeah, that would be another option of telling what might be quite an emotive story. And then finally, they also talked about one of their community, one of their sort of group projects, which is about a women's coffee morning, which sounds really straightforward, right? It sounds like something that everyone can understand. It's like, oh yeah, we come together, community talking. Yeah, that's very nice. But actually, just from doing a very brief bit of reading, I could see that the purpose of this coffee mornings, it's about that peer-to-peer support. It's about the charity simply facilitating people to come together and support each other through what has been a really difficult situation. And for me, that story would be something around how a cup of coffee can change a life. Maybe it's that alternative storytellers, and the story is coming from that coffee cup and talking about the amount of people that have held that coffee cup and talked about how impactful it is. Maybe you could tell that story and it's two people telling their story in partnership. So instead of it being all on one person, actually they're together telling one story and how that peer-to-peer conversation helped them. And again, that call to action could be something like your gift could provide the next cup of coffee. But more important than that, it's that understanding moment that helps change someone's life. So when you're thinking about a charity where the stories to tell might be tricky, might be difficult, there are other ways of telling those stories. And like I say, that was just from 5 minutes on their website. So yeah, we're going to hand over to you now to do that same thing, same brainstorming.
I love that coffee cup story that you could almost have just different hands picking it up and
Mm.
have the backgrounds change slightly. And then a Christmas one, you could be dunking a gingerbread man into it.
Oh, I love that. The
Yeah.
visuals of that. Definitely, definitely.
So yeah, we're going to hand over to you now. We're going to put you into breakout rooms. Sarah, I'm going to try and do the tech if you want to explain.
Sure. I think if we put people into groups of four, perhaps, because I know we've had a few people had to drop off and a few people that are watching in the background, so that gives us more odds of hopefully there being at least three people in the room. So what we're going to do is pop you all into breakout rooms, and essentially, who's going to be the bravest person and put their charity forward first? And you're going to have 10 to 12 minutes to start to brainstorm ideas about that charity. So tell the group your charity, quickly open a browser window, open the social media, tell people a bit about your charity, and just start to throw ideas around.